right, sixth graders, I'm back, and this time we're going to talk about the fantasy and science fiction books that are on the list. And we're going to start with the Firefly Code, and this one is written by Megan Fraser Blakemore. And can you imagine, like, who gets to decide when something is perfect? And when should science be able to be used to make you better? And when can that prove to be harmful? And that's what the Firefly Code is all about. It's about changing someone's DNA to give them the strengths that you want them to have, whether it's physical strength or intellectual ability or whatever it is that you find is important. So Maury and her close friends all live on Firefly Lane in Old Harmony, which is actually close to Boston. And it's a town where the adults all have challenging and interesting jobs, and the kids all feel safe, and they're almost never sick. Because of the work of a previous generation, the residents of the town enjoyed genetic enhancements and designs. And so you can actually undergo surgeries at a certain age. Let's say you reach 12 and your parents want to correct something that they've noticed over the last 12 years that they want to fix. You can genetically be repaired to get that fixed so that the parents will feel like they've done everything they can for you to be as successful as possible. When children in Old Harmony, yes, turn 13, they learn their genetic code and revealing if they are natural or genetically designed, and their hidden latency. That's what their talent is. And that will be released through a surgery. So that's what we were just talking about. And Maury and her friends are all about to turn 13. So this is kind of constantly on their minds, and they don't know what their latency is. But when a new girl shows up, Ilana, and she moves to Firefly Lane, it changes the way Maury and her friends first of all, relate to each other. It brings a lot of tension into their lives. And as they get to know her and find out about the truth about her, it changes everything they thought about the genetically redesigning and the latency and whether this is right for them to undergo the surgery. And so they try to backtrack through and find out where all of this started in Old Harmony and why this is a closed community. And they unravel some really deep, dark secrets. And in fact, a story of Maury's grandmother, who was very much involved in the genetic engineering that has informed how everybody lives in Old Harmony. And is this something that they should try to change? Should they be disruptors in a system that doesn't allow you to be who you are naturally? So that's the Firefly Code. The Assassination of Brangwyn Spurge is right here. And this is an interesting novel. It's, there's some text and then there are some really interesting graphics and drawings that help tell the story. So even though it looks like it's a really thick book when you go to look at it, it's sort of interspersed with parts of the story in writing and parts of the story visually. And he's an elfin historian, Brangwyn Spurge, and they're on the verge of a war. And he actually gets sent through a catapult over the mountains, and he comes in contact with the goblins. And Wereful is the goblin that he comes in contact with, and they're mortal enemies. And what he wants to do is broker a peace. And he really looks down his nose at the goblins. He thinks that they are unsophisticated and they are culturally bankrupt and they are nowhere near as intellectually able as the Brangwyn's folks on the elfin side. But it turns out that he's being betrayed, and not by the goblins. That he's been sent not as an emissary, but almost as a sacrifice. And when they start to realize that this was a ploy on the part of the Elfin King to really bring on a war, the two learn to be best friends and try to figure out a way to work together to stop the inevitable destruction that will happen if they can't stop the Elfin King from starting the war. So that's the Assassination of Brangwyn Spurge. Alana, right here, The First Adventure by Tamara Pierce, um, takes place in medieval times. And let's face it, girls did not have the choice to make it. To live an exciting life, to learn how to be a soldier, or to be taken in as an apprentice in knighthood, and had to decide instead that they were going to learn how to sew and cook and do all of the domestic arts. And this was not what Alana wanted. So she switches places, and actually, her brother goes off to the more artistic way, to the more artistic school, and she disguises herself as a boy and calls herself Tom. And she also learns that she's in the class with the prince, who who's being trained at the same time. But there's also an element of magic here that she really is starting to find out that she can control or not control. And there's this person who's brought in to train these young squires who also has this feeling of magical ability, and she starts to recognize him for the evil that he is and what his true intention is for the kingdom. And so she risks being uncovered, not people finding out who she really is. She risks using her unpracticed magic to try and save her friends. And she has to try and fight her way against a very seasoned and experienced magician to save the kingdom. So that's Alana, the First Adventure by Tamara Pierce. Akata Witch. Now, this many people, that's right over here, by Nnedi Okorafor, have said that this is a different version, an African version of the Harry Potter type story. Sunny lives in Nigeria. She's actually albino, which usually is an indication that there are some latent magical powers there. She is also a terrific athlete, but she goes back to Nigeria and she starts to be trained in the magical arts. And she and her friends, she's part of the leopard people, and she and her friends start to, as they hone their skills, also realize that there is this serial killer on the loose, and his name is the Black Hat. And as events unravel, it becomes evident that only Sunny and her friends are going to be the ones that can stop this person from killing more people in their village. So, Akata Witch, followed up by Akata Warrior, and really an exciting read. And if you want another great book about magic, Akata Witch is the way to go. Tristan Strong, right over here, and it's written by Kwame Mbalia. And so Tristan Strong is a seventh grader, and he doesn't feel strong at all. He was not able to save his best friend from a bus accident, and he's very sad. He's angry. The only thing he still has are stories that his friend Eddie wrote in a journal, and he's now going to have to go spend a month with his grandparents, which he finds, on a farm in Alabama, which he finds really boring. But his parents think it's good for him to go there to try and heal from this accident. On his first night there, this creature shows up in his bedroom and steals Eddie's journal. And so Tristan chases after it, and he can't quite figure out what this is. And he finally catches up to it. There's a tug of war, and he punches a hole in this tree while they're struggling for this. And what he's done is he's opened up a hole in the universe. And what they need to do is to try and stop Anansi, who is sort of the most powerful and spider god, from coming into the world and wreaking havoc. And so we meet a lot of the mythological characters from stories that we've heard, folk tales that we've heard in the past, and we recognize them as this whole new pantheon of gods and mythological characters that will work to try and prevent Anansi the spider from taking over. And it's Tristan's story. It's Tristan's mythology. And can they stop and seal this hole in the universe before Tristan loses everyone and everything that he loves? And that's it for our fantasy and science fiction. I will see you with the couple of graphic novels and a little bit of a summary of all of the books. And I will see you in just a few minutes. So thank you for listening.